Okay, I'm here today, my buddy John's 85 Monte Carlo. See, I got some crazy wires and stuff going on here. I will get more into that here in a little bit. What we're doing today is we're gonna tune this carburetor. So we're gonna pop the hood. So here we are under the hood of John's car. Now John has a Edelbrock 600 carburetor. I'm just gonna go over like the real general overview of a 4-barrel carb. This is going to be true on any 4-barrel carb. So on any 4-barrel carb, you have pretty much 4 main systems that you use to get the fuel in the motor. So the first one is going to be your idle circuit. That's going to be used like it sounds, primary idle. On this carburetor, it's going to be these 2 screws right here. And to get those where you need them to be, you're pretty much going to unscrew them or screw them in. You're going to find the maximum RPM that you can get out of them, and then you're going to turn them in just a little bit. They say like a 20 RPM drop, which is almost nothing. So it's going to be almost all the way out for max RPM. Once you hit your max RPM, you're not going to back them out anymore. That would just be rich, and you just be burning gas for nothing. The next thing is going to be this is a 4-barrel carb. You got 2 in the front, 2 in the back. 2 in the front are your primaries. Okay, that's going to be like light throttle and you know, heavier throttle, but not quite into the secondary. Your 2 back barrels here, those are going to be your secondaries. On this carb and on most performance carbs, it's mechanical secondaries. Okay, so this shaft right here is going to be your secondaries. When that spins, that's going to be your secondaries. So you can give it quite a bit of throttle, and the secondaries don't even start to open until right there. Right there, they start to open. Just that last little bit. So anything before that's going to be solely your primary. And then the fourth thing that they have is they have what's called an accelerator pump, which is right here. There's like a plunger on the bottom end of this rod. And if you look in here, it's pretty hard to see. There's 2 nozzles in here that spray out. If you hit the gas real hard, it squirts fuel right into the motor, and that helps when you're having like a real quick throttle change. Like you get on it all of a sudden. You got a few different holes here. You can put your little arm on for it, and then you can actually change the size of the nozzles in there. When I go in here and change some jets, you're going to be able to see those nozzles a lot better. So like I said, the idle circuit's pretty easy. You're going to go for maximum RPM on this Edelbrock. For the primaries and the secondaries, there's different ways to tune it. I think the best way and the easiest way is going to be go and get yourself a wideband oxygen sensor, a wideband air to fuel ratio gauge, and that's what I've done here. So I went ahead and went underneath the car. We welded in an oxygen sensor bung right there, and this is going to be a temporary setup just to get it tuned. So I got the wire coming out, going in the passenger door here. There's that cable coming through. Plugs in right here to the gauge. This is a MSD gauge I picked up. I'm gonna actually install that in my my Grand National, but first I'm going to use it to tune John's car. And then you're going to need some power. So for that, I just used some wire nuts. Like I said, this is all just temporary, and I hooked it up to a cigarette outlet thing I had. So we got power, it's connected to the oxygen sensor, and that's all you need to make it run. Now what I want to do is I want to go into the manual for the carburetor and go over some of the stuff in the manual so you get a better idea how to change the settings in them. And then we'll take her out on the road, and we'll see where it's at, and we'll get this thing dialed in. So Edelbrock actually has a pretty nice manual. It tells you how to tune your air to fuel ratio. So your cruising, it's going to be pretty lean, about 15:1. Your part throttle acceleration, it's going to be about 14:1. And then your full throttle is going to be like about 12.5. I think most of the GM motors, they tend to run, they pick up a few more horses if you run them a little bit leaner, like 12.8, somewhere around there. But this is actually good for what we're doing. It's I think it's like 85 degrees outside, and I'm wanting to put in a tune that is going to work not
not quite year round, because he won't drive it in the very cold winter. But I want to have a tune that's you know, it's kind of on the rich side, you know, when it's warm out. But then if he takes it home, you know, if he goes out in the fall and comes home at a 45-degree night, you know, it still is right where it should be. So I think 12.5, that'd be pretty good for what we're doing. So then we come down here. This describes pretty well how your primaries work. So you got these metering rods, and they have 2 steps in them. They got this little skinny section here, and they got the fatter section here. So when right here at low load you got a lot of vacuum. Your engine's sucking a lot, but the throttle bodies are closed and they can't get any air, so it makes a lot of vacuum. And that sucks this down. It compresses the spring, and you deal with this fat part. And then as you get on the throttle a little bit, you feed the thing some air. The vacuum is low. At high load, spring picks up, and then you feel off the skinnier part down here. Gives you more fuel. So you can change the rod, and you can change the size of the jet. Now the secondaries are just a jet only. When they open up, they just pulls fuel through whatever jet you put in there. So now we're going to come down to our part number is a 1406. This is a 600 CFM carb. I've actually checked. I took the lid off mine and checked the jets that are in it because it was used. So what it has is actually the stock primary metering. So it's going to start with the 1 here, which is this jet and this rod, and then you can kind of figure out what way you need to go. If you're cruising, it needs to be rich, you're going to go up. If you're cruising, it needs to be leaner, you go down. If the power side of it is lean, you go left. If the power side needs to be richer, you go right. And then here down here is your secondary jetting. This one actually has a 1-stage richer jet. So it has a 0.098 jet in it. It actually has that for the primary and the secondary. So I think it does need to be leaner though. So now all you do, we know where we're at right now. The rods, this is all just primary. And that's all I'm really worried about right now. If I take the lid off, I might throw a smaller jet in there for the secondaries just to see what it does, but I'm primarily wanting to get this dialed in before I mess with the secondaries. So like I said, right now we're right here at 1. So what we'll do is we'll take it out and drive it, and we'll see which direction we need to go. So this is a nice real light throttle cruising speed. I'm just giving it just enough gas just to hold the throttle, and it looks to be right around 14 to 1. You want it more like 15 and a half to 1 would be more ideal for gas mileage. So we're a little fat there. I'm gonna slow down just a little bit. Now I'm gonna do like a heavier part throttle. I'm not gonna go heavy enough to get into my secondaries, but I'm gonna go heavy enough to where it's in like the power mode of my my primary. So let's go ahead and give us a pretty good gas. That's running right about 15 and a half. So these are actually opposite of what they should be. 15 and a half, that's too lean for like your power mode on your primaries. And then the 14, it runs fine there with the cruise, but it would be better if I could get that a little leaner. So now I want to check my accelerator pump. That comes into play when you give it like a sudden hit of the throttle, like real quick. And you want to watch for like a real high, like lean spike when you first get into it, or kind of like a hesitation. So we're going to go ahead and try that now. I'm just going to go ahead and just kind of almost floor it real quick. You can see it dips rich instantly, and there's no hesitation. And I think that's pretty decent. So I'm happy with the accelerator pump, nozzles, and the setting on the accelerator pump. The only other thing is a wide open throttle. We can go ahead and look at that. Thing about wide open throttle is going to be your primaries plus your secondaries. So being how we're already going to have to go rich on the primaries, you know, you don't really dial into secondaries until you got your primaries set. You can kind of guess. I mean, if you're going to take the lid off the carburetor to change the jet,
you can just guess, and maybe, you know, you'll save yourself taking the lid off one more time. But we're just gonna see where we're at, just so we have an idea. So this is gonna be wide open throttle now. And that's staying around 11 and a half. So that's a little rich. So we're gonna want to lean that down. And yeah, so we give a part throttle, we're lean, and then when the secondaries kick in, we're rich. So we're gonna go with a smaller secondary jet, and then we're gonna try to see if we can't do some kind of jet metering combination on the primaries to get us a little bit leaner cruise and a little bit richer power. So we'll go ahead, go back and consult the manual and see, you know, what kind of setting I want to put it at, and we'll try it out, and we'll see where we're at after that.
Okay, so we're here at 1. Normally I would go ahead and try 2 because we're wanting to go richer on the power mode, or even like 9 because we're also want to go leaner on our cruise. So we would do like a 9. But the thing about 2 and 9 are you have to run a different jet. So what I would hate to do is switch to that jet and try those out and find out that we need to get richer, and then put the old jet back in it, because it's, like I said, it's a pain in the butt to take that lid off. I don't want to have it on and off, you know, 100 times. So the rods are very easy to change out. It takes like 2 seconds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw in this number 3. It's going to be the same jet we already have in it. It's going to be this part number rod there. So let's just go ahead and toss that in and see what that does, and then we'll go from there.
So the rods are really easy. All you do is take a 1/4 inch socket, and then don't drop the bolt. And then just pull out. Just a little clip here. Slide it down, it comes right out. Get your new rod that you're putting in. There you go. And drop it in there. It's that easy, so that's why I wanted to do the rod first. See where that gets us. And I'll just drop the other side in, and we'll see where we're at. So here we are, part throttle. Pretty much no change. It's still 15, 15 and a half. It's basically exactly how it was. Which doesn't make any sense at all. So the power part of those rods were definitely much skinnier than what I had in there before, so it should have definitely made it richer. So this isn't the first time I've had these kind of carbs. The ones I had in the past, you really had to kind of like push down on this to get it to sit flat. And this one here doesn't really seem like it lifts the rods very much. I think maybe these springs are kind of wore out. This is a used carb. I don't know how old it is. It looked like it was in decent condition. So I think the problem is that spring is not stiff enough. They actually make different ones. You can swap in what you want. In this case, I'm giving it a pretty heavy throttle, and I guess it's still using like the cruising part of the rod, which I really feel like it should be more into like the power portion of it. So the vacuum, the little vacuum that you have under moderate throttle is enough to keep that. It's enough to compress that spring and keep the rod down. And I want a heavier spring that kind of picks it up a little earlier. And that's what the ones I've worked with in the past, they've they've been stiffer too. So I'm gonna go ahead and get a set of springs for it. I'm probably gonna switch back to the old rod I had in there and get some new springs. Unfortunately, I don't have the springs, so we'll have to do that another day. But those are the kind of things you can run into when you're messing with these things. So unfortunately, I was hoping to get it all dialed in today, but that's not gonna happen. So thanks for watching. I'll probably have that spring here in a couple of days, and I'll post up another video to get this thing all dialed in the way I want it to be. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.